Hi, and welcome to another episode of Starship Gaming, and today we are going to talk about a video game movie. Specifically, we are going to talk about Street Fighter. So, let's jump right in. Street Fighter, based on the popular video game series Street Fighter, of course. This was a film that came out in 1994, and it starred Jean-Claude Van Damme as Guile, and Raul Julia as M. Bison. So there's a lot of things going on in this movie. And of course, like we talked about last time, usually we give a description of, a brief plot of the whole movie. And I've done that for the past few video game movies we've done, but as my friend pointed out as he was watching an episode, he said, you know what? Why are you telling people the movie when they can just watch it themselves and base, your review, let me rephrase that. Why don't you tell them, the goods and the bads of the movie, or, a general description, and then tell them to watch the movie, whatnot, instead of describing the movie. And I think I'm going to try that and see how well it fares. So, instead of telling you, plot by, the plot of the movie, scene by scene like I normally do, or a brief description, I will give a very brief description of the movie. So basically, in the movie, how it pretty much starts out is that civil war breaks out in the country of Shadaloo, and their leader is General Bison. And the Allied Nations, which is led by Guile, they basically come there and kick some serious butt. Okay, so it doesn't exactly go that easily. Like I said, you're going to have to watch the movie instead of let me tell you completely about it like last time. But I'm going to just start right into the review and just, you base my review on, your thoughts of the movie. If you have seen it, most people have seen it by now. It came out in 1994. You've had literally 20 some years, 20, whatever. You've had more than 25 years to see it. So let me jump right into the review part of the movie. The movie itself, it's based on a video game. And there is a couple things that are wrong with the movie. And there is a couple things that they did pretty good. Like the characters, some of the characters they did a really good job with. Of course, Raul Julia, he did really good with playing M. Bison. I don't think anyone who's played the character, pretty sure they've done a couple, things where a live action actor have played him, but he, out of all of them that I've seen, he is probably one of the best characterizations I've seen. And not because of the fact that he is a really great actor, but because he did a really great job with that role. And of course, Jean-Claude Van Damme, he did pretty decent as Guile. Of course, Guile is American, and you come up with the problem that he is speaking with an accent, but he's got an American arm tattoo. I guess they wanted to find... Well, here's the thing. It's Universal who released this film. And one of their biggest stars at that time, that if you look at some of the Universal films, he's in them, is Jean-Claude Van Damme, who was pretty young and pretty famous at the time. And I think, that's one reason. Plus, I'm pretty sure he was probably under contract with Universal. They're like, hey, who do we have that looks awesome and is one of the, big money-making stars? And they came to Jean-Claude Van Damme. Of course, if you've heard of some of the behind-the-scenes stuff, which, warning ahead of time, this is not family-friendly, he did drugs on the set, or so it's said. I'm not going to get into the specifics of that, but if you want to read the behind-the-scenes stuff, it's mentioned. But the characterizations were pretty decent in the movie. For most of them. There were a few things that were kind of iffy. And the movie over the years has gained a reputation for not being particularly well liked by Street Fighter fans. If you watch it as a non-Street Fighter fan, which when I started watching it, I wasn't until years later. Of course, I am now, but when I first watched it, I saw it as a decent action movie. It had, there was comedy sprinkled throughout it, which kind of killed the mood of the movie. Of course, I believe it's PG-13, so they had to kind of make it family friendly, but you got to remember Street Fighter isn't exactly family friendly. Of course, it's more family friendly than Mortal Kombat, and we saw how that turned out. But it seemed weird because there's comedy all throughout the Street Fighter movie, and it just, some of it seems out of place. Like at one point there's even like a Godzilla parody, which I know it's there for the comedic purposes, but it felt so out of place in that movie. They just should not have, but I think when they done a Street Fighter movie, it should have been strictly serious. Of course, this is the 90s and everything was over the top. Of course, we've seen how well most video game movies did at that time. The best example of a video game movie to, that went pretty badly was Super Mario Bros. The movie, which we discussed in a video a few months back. If you haven't watched it yet, go ahead and click on that after you watch this, of course. But it's really, like I said, the comedy kind of killed it for me. It's a pretty decent action movie. It's worth, it's entertaining. I'm going to say that it's entertaining. But it's, I don't know how to describe that. It's kind of those touch and go sort of things. It's really good in some parts, and then it's really cheesy or campy in other parts. And of course, the movie didn't fail. It raked in over 99 million worldwide. And that was on a $35 million budget. It did not fail, so we got that established. But the question is, why is it so unliked by Street Fighter fans? And I think the simple answer to that is that it's too over the top in terms of story and some of the characters are kind of more over the top than their video game counterparts. But we have to look at it this way. You were taking a video game that barely had a story. A majority of Street Fighter, I'm pretty sure, was taken from Street Fighter 2. I'm going to say about 98% of the story. Because at that time there wasn't much other Street Fighter material out. But they took a video game, okay? Like I said, mostly Street Fighter 2. And they tried to expand that story into a very long movie. Not too long, but long enough to hold people in their seats, And of course, you're looking at, you're talking about Universal, Capcom, they really want this movie made. So you try to cram a basic 102-minute movie, into that time span, and it's based on a video game that barely has a plot. It has a very basic story, very basic plot, and you try to turn it into a movie, and that's what that's what they tried to do with these video game movies. Of course, this was before you had, some of the more cinematic type stuff, like in modern video games. Like, for example, Tomb Raider, which, of course, studios take creative liberties when they make this stuff. And when I say creative liberties, I mean creative liberties. So, and it's like the Super Mario Bros. Movie. They didn't know where they wanted to go with that one. I mean, yeah, by that point you had plenty of material to base your movie on, but coming up with proper material for a proper story, it's a little hard, and I think that's what a lot of people don't understand when video games are adapted into movies. So it's a really difficult process, and I don't think a lot of people really understand that before they judge a movie. But what I am overall going to say about Street Fighter, and this is, my opinion of it, it is not a bad movie, but it's not a good movie. Let me explain what I mean. It's one of those movies that if you're feeling kind of bored and you want to sit down with a snack and you have time to waste for like maybe 2 hours, this is a good movie to sit down and enjoy on a Sunday afternoon or something. Of course, that's what I often did. I would experiment with different movies. That's how I discovered Street Fighter, and this was before I was a Street Fighter fan. I was in high school when I first watched this movie. I actually only had the VHS copy of it, but I remember specifically I picked up Street Fighter from my local flea market. I believe I paid $2 for it, and this was probably around 2009, 2010. So, it was fall, September or October, sometime around that time. I'm pretty sure it was 2009. But I remember a lot of people were saying, 2009, you're young. Well, it is what it is. Anyway, I would go to the flea market, pick up movies. I found this one for $2, and of course it was a Saturday. So Sundays I would spend watching movies in the afternoon. I would spend my morning sleeping until 10 or 11 o'clock, and then I would lazily get out of bed, walk to the living room, see what was on TV, and then I would get up and make myself something to eat, like cereal or something. Typical teenager food. And then I would lazily go in there, watch TV, and then sometimes my parents, around 30 minutes after I woke up or something, they would say, hey, we're gonna go out for the day, and then we would go out to somewhere like Walmart or Kmart or Big Lots or something like that to look around. And then when we got back in the afternoon, probably about 2, I'm gonna say about 2:30, 3 o'clock, then there was nothing else to do for the rest of the day. I didn't really play a lot of video games. Of course, I would, I always have my PlayStation 1. I would always listen to music or something on it if I wasn't playing video games. Of course, this, I did this for years. I used my PS1. Of course, if you've seen my PS1 video, you need to check that one out too. But what I did on one particular day when I seen Street Fighter, I think we went out to, I believe it was Kmart, and we were just looking for like fall stuff. Like my mom would go and we'd look for fall stuff. And then when we got back that afternoon, I think it was about 2:30, I just felt so tired, and I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna go, to my room and just watch something. And usually from the day before, I'd have like a stack of the movies I picked up. Probably be like 3 or 4 movies that I'd picked up, or sometimes as many as 20, depending on if I bought boxes, load of VHS tapes where they were so easily to obtain. So I ended up watching this movie, and I think it was during a time like I was bored, so I had like a Hungry Man meal or something, a microwave meal, and I watched this movie, and before I was a fan, and my opinion of it was, wow, this is an awesome movie. Jean-Claude Van Damme is awesome, and it really took a long time for it to sink in. Of course, years later, I ended up getting the DVD of it, and I eventually ended up with a Laserdisc release of the movie around 2015 when I started collecting Laserdiscs, and it's a decent movie. I mean, if you're bored and it's just something you want to watch in the afternoon or evening, it's good for that. It's very good for that. Of course, the movie has its flaws. Like I said, one of the major flaws of it is the comedic portions of the movie, which, most of the comedy that they do insert into the movie is kind of out of place. Of course, they were trying to make this movie that was, action-oriented and fantastical and whatnot. And some of it failed to hit the point. And the acting was pretty decent. I mean, there was a few, actors in there that didn't do the best job in the world, but I mean, other than that, the acting was okay. It was decent. Jean-Claude Van Damme as Guile seemed kind of out of place. Not being an American actor, he still had an accent. I think they could have had like an American actor play the character. I mean, I can understand, you have Jean-Claude Van Damme, who's going to bring in all kinds of money, as opposed to, whoever else was around at that time, or, an unknown actor. It probably wouldn't have made as much if they had an unknown actor. But it's, it's not a bad movie, but it's not a good movie, if that makes sense. Like I said, if you have some time, to waste, and you want to just sit down and have a snack, or you want to watch something, kind of campy with your friends on a, Sunday afternoon, then I recommend that for you. To the Street Fighter fan, I really don't recommend it to you if you haven't seen it. Of course, if you want to see it just out of curiosity, watch it at least twice before you judge it, because otherwise you'll feel kind of, the first time you watch it, you'll be like, oh, that's terrible, and the second time may change your opinion of it, like, it's not too bad, or it's still terrible. Of course, at the end of the movie, I guess they thought that the movie would have done well enough to do a sequel, because it suggested at the very end that, there's the possibility of a sequel. Of course, it never did get a sequel. Instead, they made another completely unrelated Street Fighter movie. Of course, a lot of the reason why I think it never got a sequel is, to be honest, 99.9% of the reason why I think it never got a sequel is because of the death of Raul Julia. Of course, they could have, said, he didn't actually make it at the end of the movie, and now we're going to introduce a new character. Of course, M. Bison is a pretty major character in the Street Fighter series, so I could see why they didn't want to recast or anything. But I'm pretty sure that, that's the reason why it never got a sequel. Of course, he passed away. Raul Julia, he passed away a few months before the movie was released in the United States in theaters. And he never did live to see the finished product, or he may have seen it, a rough cut of it, but that's one reason why they never did make a sequel. Of course, you got to look at it this way: we could have had 3 Addams Family movies. Of course, I'm not going to count that direct-to-video Addams Family movie that came out in, like, when was that, 1998, 1999, sometime. I think it was 98. We're not going to count that one. Of course, we got 2 really good movies. It would have been nice to have a third one. Of course, Raul Julia, he was a really good actor. Actually, he wasn't good. He was really great. He was a great actor, no matter what you put him in. And he was a really great villain in this. I mean, it was kind of campy, and you could tell he was, playing the... But aside from that fact, the movie could have very well have gotten a sequel. Not only for the fact that, what people thought about it, but for the fact that it was, a big money maker. But if I have to give it any particular grade, which I don't remember what I've done with the past ones, the past video game movies that I took a look at, but if I had to give this one a grade, I'd give it a C+. Like I said, I've said it a million times through this long video, and if you've stuck through this long, you'll be rewarded. Like I said, it's not a bad movie, but it's not a good movie. It's like middle ground. For that fact, I don't know what more to say about it. I've already exhausted everything I could say about Street Fighter, which is kind of sad, but kind of good at the same time. So, my final thoughts on this movie, since I've exhausted everything I could say about, and once again, I apologize if you expected to hear a summary of the entire movie, because honestly, there's a lot going on in this movie, and for some reason today, I just don't feel like explaining it. If you want to know about it, watch the movie. But my final thoughts on this movie is they tried. They really tried. And they didn't particularly fail, but they tried. They worked really hard to try to bring a product, turn a game, or a game series, I should say, into a film product that people can enjoy. And they did the best they could with what they had. Of course, if a movie like this was made today, I don't know how well a Street Fighter movie would do. Of course, there was one a couple years ago, and I don't know how well it did. I don't think it did very well at all. That's actually one I'm getting ready to watch here soon, because it's one I never did. I wasn't never interested in it until I started doing video game reviews. But if you get a chance to watch it, sit down and watch it. Sometimes, like on Netflix or Hulu, you can find it. It was on Hulu not too long ago, probably about a year or so ago, if I recall. I can't really remember. But it falls under like a category of like it's action, but it's also science fiction somewhat at the same time. I mean, certain elements of it are sci-fi, but it falls under a category of certain movies that were made at the time. Certain movies have certain feeling, not feelings, but a certain feel to them. But if I was to watch this movie, and like if you ever do a double feature, this is what I'm trying to say. If you ever do a double feature, watch this movie back to back with Judge Dredd. Seriously. Watch this movie, Street Fighter, and then watch the Judge Dredd movie. Not the 2012 one, but watch the Sylvester Stallone Judge Dredd, 1995. As a double feature if you do. But if not, just watch this. It's worth watching. Give it a watch. At least try it once. If you like it, spoily for you. If you don't like it, then don't worry about it. But at least give this movie a try. Don't take what Street Fighter fans or movie fans in general, oh, it's a terrible movie. That's their opinion. Just like this whole video, just like how it's my opinion, my view of it, my discussion of it. So just at least give it a try. If you like it, if you don't, inform your own opinion on it. So that's really my final thoughts on it. And like I said a moment ago, if you stuck around this long and listened to this whole entire thing, you are going to be rewarded. Between now, let's see, what is today? Today is the 9th of September 2019. Between now and September 20th, I will be taking suggestions in the comments section for future subjects of which I can talk about. They can be, the thing is, they have to be video game related. Nothing inappropriate, please. But I want serious video game subjects. Certain ones, if you suggest them and if they've been covered a lot, like, for example, the connection between violence and video games. That one's been talked, so much about that it's a subject I probably won't cover. I mean, there's already hundreds that have already covered it. But if you need suggestions, in October, the whole month of October, we are going to cover nothing but, horror-related stuff in video games, scary video games, Halloween-related video games, stuff like that. I can tell you one of the things we'll be talking about is like the Mummy video games that was released. For example, one of them, The Mummy for PS1. We're going to talk about that one in a video. But there's a lot of time left in September, and I haven't, this is September 2019 as of this recording. I haven't really done a whole lot of videos as of this month. I think in September I've only released, this will be the second one for the month. I at least plan on doing at least 6 or 7 more before the end of this month. Maybe more than that, I don't know. I could be saying that and then I actually did like 10 videos or 20 videos, I don't know. Leave a suggestion for a thing. It can be about, a video game console, or it could be about a certain video game or video game series. So basically, it could be anything video game related. If you can think it up, I don't want anything inappropriate, nothing like that. We're not going to talk about adult video games or anything like that, at least not yet. Of course, if we do that, we'll have to put a disclaimer at the beginning of the video game. Or what did I say? Video game. The beginning of the video. See, I've already gone crazy from doing these videos. Well, anyway. And like I was going to say, October's coming up. I already got 3 videos planned for October, One of them, of course, is like the Mummy related video. So if you have any suggestions for like Halloween or horror related, or scary video game subjects I can talk about. Of course, I'm not going to do anything creepypasta related. Not that I plan on. I may cover something maybe along the lines of creepypasta subjects, but I try to avoid those. I don't really consider them credible because they fall under the category of fan fiction. I mean, I might cover one if I feel like it, maybe 2. Probably just 1, but but yeah, make that, if you hung in there this long, congratulations. Make any suggestions you have. If we like it, we'll do it. And you have until September 20th, 2019 to submit your ideas. After that, I'm going to be coming up with my videos. I always plan my videos at least a month in advance. So, or at least subjects. So go ahead and make those suggestions. So yeah, that's the end of our discussion. We kind of got off subject there in the last few minutes. This is now officially the longest video we've released in this series. And if you've stuck around this long, congratulations, you are a true fan. And if you watched the whole thing to the very end, comment, I watched the whole thing to the very end, and I will love your comment, and I may pin it, you know, if you're the first one to get to the, and that's the end of our discussion about Street Fighter and various other stuff that we wandered off subject. Of course, that's what we do here. We talk about stuff we love, and if it has a story behind it, we roll with it. So I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Hit the bell if you want notifications of when we do more awesome videos. Of course, we have tons more videos that you can watch. We have over 70 plus episodes as of this recording. And if you enjoy meaningful discussions, when I say meaningful, I mean it very loosely. Tune in for some more. Watch our past ones. We have some long videos. We have some short ones. Of course, this is the longest one as of this recording. And until next time, I will see ya.